Terry Wallace was sitting alone in 20,000 square feet of empty office space. His build out was complete, the coffee bar was stocked, the conference rooms were all ready, but nobody was there. He had walked prospects through the space during construction, and they'd picked out offices and handed over deposits. By the time he was ready to flip the lights on, a third of the space was spoken for. And then they all started calling to cancel. And that's what left Terry alone in 20,000 square feet on the hook for a 15-year lease with one question he was trying to process. Should he keep going or walk away? Now, Terry had spent 30 years building his career. First, he was with the Marine Corps, and then in HR roles at Deloitte and Pfizer and WeWork. He had thought about doing his own thing for years, but it wasn't until WeWork that he finally saw an idea he actually got excited about. As most of you know, WeWork popularized co-working in the big global cities like New York and London and Shanghai. Well, Terry lived in Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, but many of his neighbors spent 2 or more hours a day on buses and trains commuting to jobs in Manhattan and Philadelphia. Terry knew that well because he'd done it himself. WeWork, of course, is headquartered in New York. His idea was simple. He was going to bring co-working to his community and kill the commute. He spent months building conviction, which led to him signing 3 leases on 60,000 square feet in total across 3 locations. And guess when he opened his doors? March 15th, 2020. So of course, you know what happened next. Within 30 days, COVID had killed the commute better than Terry's business model ever was going to. And the problem was that he built his entire business to solve this problem that had temporarily disappeared. And there was no clear timeline for when or if things were going to go back to normal. Every one of the tenants that he had signed up pulled out. So he, of course, had to let go of his staff, and he came into work every day in a beautiful and completely empty office space. Now, most people looking at his situation from the outside would have said, the answer is obvious, Terry. The timing's terrible. The market's evaporated. Man, you should just cut your losses and move on. And the thing is, Terry would not have argued with you about the numbers. But he didn't actually think the timing made the idea wrong. He thought the timing was a temporary condition. He still felt this deep conviction about the idea. If anything, watching everyone struggle trying to work from their kitchen tables made him even more sure of it. So he stayed, and for 2.5 years, he operated at almost zero revenue. That meant he was cleaning the space himself and had to learn every corner of a business that he probably would have just delegated if the launch had gone as planned. On top of that, for more than a year, Terry kept pouring money into advertising, convinced he was just going to market his way through it. Well, it didn't work. So he stopped entirely and just opened the doors for free. He was tired of being alone, and he thought maybe getting people in the space would build the kind of momentum that his marketing hadn't. Well, he was right. That change in his approach began to shift the trajectory of his business. A business partner and I have lived a version of this ourselves. When the Great Recession hit, we had a business that was fundamentally sound. It had a good model, and many of the customers were recurring customers. But the economy had changed dramatically in a short period of time, and we kept making the same mistake Terry made at first. We were just convinced things were about to come back. So we kept our team and we kept the overhead, and we kept making all of our decisions based on this reality of what was true in the past. Well, that waffling cost us over $1 million. It culminated in a conference call. I remember sitting on this call with a group of bankruptcy attorneys, and they were talking us through what a bankruptcy reorganization would look like. And when we got to the end of the call, I asked them how they would get paid. And they said they needed a $50,000 retainer to get started, which I thought was hilarious and ironic because we didn't even have the money to go bankrupt. And that meant there was only one path left for us, a really hard one actually, to cut all the things we truly didn't need and stop holding on to this future we hoped was going to show up, but instead aligning the business to the reality of what was in front of us. Once we did that, things almost immediately started getting better. And it wasn't because the recession ended, as many of you know, it went on for a while. It was because we stopped fighting it, and it was the same for Terry. His turn didn't come from more marketing spend. It came from accepting where things actually were and then finding a path to fit that reality, which for him meant opening the doors for free, getting people in the space, and letting momentum find its own shape. Now, when I interviewed Terry, it was almost 6 years after he launched his business. And by then, his 20,000 square feet was fully occupied. He had a long wait list, and he also had another 20,000 square foot location that was set to open within a few months that was already fully leased. Turns out COVID hadn't just delayed his customers, it had actually multiplied them. Remote workers were moving to smaller cities, looking for places to work that weren't their kitchen table. The same disruption that nearly destroyed Terry's business had created even more opportunity for his idea. But I want to be careful here because I don't actually see Terry's story as an argument for stubbornness. He took on almost $1.5 million in debt he hadn't planned on just to survive. The hole he dug was real, and even 6 years later when I talked to him, he was still climbing out of it. What I want you to take from both of these stories is something different. Because people ask me all the time whether now is a good time to start a business. And the honest answer is nobody knows. Not me, not The Economist, not the people who sound most confident on television. Actually, who watches television anymore? I guess it's the most confident on streaming or on YouTube. But I mean, think about a lot of these great companies. Airbnb launched at the start of the Great Recession. Uber launched a year later. Microsoft launched during the oil embargo recession of 1975, which sounds so long in the past that most of you probably don't even remember it. Well, none of those founders had certainty. They had conviction in an idea and this willingness to adapt when the conditions didn't cooperate. Timing's the wrong variable. By the time there's consensus that the conditions are right, that the timing is perfect, the opportunity's already been spotted by so many other people. And disruption's going to come regardless. What's worth keeping in mind in business is that every disruption carries both risks and opportunities. And which side you end up on has everything to do with whether you're willing to adapt. There's a famous quote from Eisenhower that says better than I ever could. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything. Well, Terry didn't survive because he got lucky with timing. He survived despite getting incredibly unlucky with timing because he held this idea tightly and adapted just about everything else. And that's the skill. It's not reading tea leaves. It's doing the work to know what you believe and staying flexible enough to find the path forward, even when real life doesn't cooperate. Don't quit your daydream, y'all. Cheers.